Hello, I am your everyday average Jonathan. Join me this week as I take this and make it into this, what I really believe can only be called an eccentric, artistic, different take on a weapon of old. Hello, I am your everyday average Jonathan. I am an ordinary guy with ordinary tools making extraordinary items. I am a self-taught craftsman. I'm an amateur blacksmith and a novice woodworker. I have no professional training and a basic assortment of tools that I've cobbled together over the years. The items that I make each week tend to be whimsical in nature, fantastical, echoing times of a forgotten yore. Items like novelties, structures, practical items, and yes, weapons and armor. This particular week, the project that I'm building is going to look directly at that category, but from a different perspective. And to delve into that, I think it requires me telling a quick little story. About 6 months ago, I was working in my shop. I was making some weapon, some piece of armor, and one of my neighbors pulled up next to my shop, stopped, got out, and asked what I was doing. And I said, well, I'm making a weapon, of course, as you do. And my neighbor's response was actually kind of a flippant, sort of snarky, off-the-cuff remark, and the response was, yeah, because that's the thing we need most is more weapons in this world. And my immediate initial reaction was to give him the hairy side, but then two things simultaneously occurred to me. One, that wouldn't be very neighborly, and two, my neighbor is a woman, so, well, there's that. But once I got past that, I thought about it for a while and actually percolated on that comment that she had made for a little bit. And of course, I have my reasons and my perspective for wanting to create weapons and armor, and I went through the justification process in my mind for it. But then I thought, maybe there's something to what she's saying, not so much from maybe a pacifist sort of perspective, but maybe from a societal or cultural thing. And recently, this thought came back up to me, this interaction came back up to me where I actually thought, you know what, I bet you I can lean into that concept. And maybe there is a ethos that lies in between the creations of weapons, even though it is just recreation and fun projects. Maybe there's a way to create, to still be able to do that, but have something that actually sort of meets a different ethos entirely, which may be one of where she was coming from. So without being more mysterious, that's what this project is going to be. It's going to be the creation of something that still is fantastical and interesting and in the genre of weapons and armor, but maybe the outcome of it isn't for the sake of the intended use of a weapon in and of itself. So without further ado, come to the shop with me. Let me show you what I'm going to build, and we'll see if I can pull off what's in my mind's eye. I haven't counted, but I believe I've made somewhere between 50 and 100 implements, weapons. All of them are going to be historical recreations or fantastical recreations. Some of them were experiments, some of them were commissions, some of them were just items that I felt I needed to challenge myself to make. I've really enjoyed the process. It's part of who I am now. And here is the only picture that I made of what it is that was in my mind's eye. That kind of looks like one of those, what are those, Cuban women that you see dancers with the big fruit balls on top of their heads, if you ask me. The first order of business for me was going to be something that I've actually never done, and that was going to be to forge out a bunch of leaves. I made 33 in total. I've actually never tried to make a leaf out of a piece of square or round stock, so this actually took me quite a bit of time to get right. I did look up a YouTube video or two on it, and then finally I figured out how to do it. It was drawing out and then shaping this little piece of square iron. I used multiple different sizes of iron stock for this, so that each one had a little bit different size to it. But also I made sure that the shapes that I would make on these, I put different cuts, different grooves, different indentations to make all of these leaves. I really like the way these turn out. They actually do look leaf-like because they have those indentations, and leaves tend to have those. Also, each time I made one of these, you see me here, I'm shaping the stem of the leaf. That actually turned out great too, because then I would just cut it off below the stem and it would have something to attach it directly to the piece of art that I was creating. So again, turned out really well. The other part of the other half of the leaves that I'm going to be making here, we're going to be made out of straight sheet metal. I don't like the way those leaves turned out as much as these particular ones, but it was just another way to sort of supplement the look and make things that were actually a little bit more shapely, a little larger. Here's a final product of the forged. I did look up on my phone multiple times leaf shapes, and in the end I just started coming up with some of my own. This is 16 gauge stainless steel. I am going for the stainless look with some of these leaves. The forged ones have a little bit of a darkened look, so it gives this sort of texture to it, which I really like. Each one of these pieces of sheet metal leaves I was going to texture with the hammer. That's what you see me doing here. And then I was going to go ahead and make the veins that you saw me using the chisel for. I'm dishing the leaves as well so that they're not just flat, so that they've got a little bit of texture, a little bit of veins, a little bit of three-dimensional look to them. This is about half of the leaves. In the end, like I said, I did 33 and that was about half. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a sword hilt, a handle, a pommel, and a guard. And I want to make it as accurately as I can from the pommel all the way to the guard, something that actually I would use as a sword. So I'm making the guard now, and I'm just going to go ahead and draw this, drill through something that I can attach a small blade to. You will not hopefully see this blade at all, but it is going to be there, and it's going to be the structure for where I mount the leaves to. This guard, what I wanted to do, as well as with the pommel, I wanted to make it look organic, as if nature was starting to take back over the original form of this man-made piece of equipment. I wanted it to look like nature had come back and started to grow out of it. So with each of the ends of this piece of guard, I ground them down a little bit, I twisted them, and I gave them a little bit of a curl, and they do look like roots to me. They do look like little branch stems potentially to me. This is the final look of one side. I really dig it. I think it looks really cool. I've done stuff like that before. It wasn't a big surprise. And as I often do with a lot of my weapon creations, I will go ahead and start twisting this metal. This was an inch thick stock that I had to cut. I'm making those grooves in it so that it sort of visually draws out before you go ahead and twist it. And then I'm going to go ahead and start to make the pommel. I welded this onto a piece of rebar so that I could come over to my chop saw and make these really cool kind of beveled cuts, almost like facets on a gemstone that a jeweler would make at the cutting wheel for a gemstone. And then once I'm done here cutting those in, I will bring it over to my sanding block and make even more facets, even more faces. In the end, there was a lot of facets, a lot of faces. None of them looked that great, but here's the thing, because nature has taken over this particular weapon, if it's slightly imbalanced and not perfect, that's totally okay by me. I'm just going to attach the guard to the handle here. I'm just directly welding it onto the handle. It doesn't need to be super tight. I just want it to make sure it has the look from afar of a sword handle. Now I place the blade down into it, and I'm going to go ahead and tack weld that blade into the structure that you see I've built here. Okay, the guard, the pommel is yet to be attached, but the guard of the handle and the blade are there. Now, here's all of the leaves. I did not show the welding of the guard, but you could see it on the sword handle there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start kind of randomly attaching blades. And maybe I shouldn't say randomly, because I actually did select the positions. But as you can see here, I wanted to sort of give it an overlap so that you really didn't see the blade. The big mistake, which I shouldn't say it's a mistake, it was just a judgment error, is I didn't get it so that these leaves look like they're growing out of the blade. They look like they're covering the blade, and actually I don't like that. And here you go. Here's the final product. All of the leaves are on. I did coat the leaves with a little bit of an enamel lacquer. I want to make sure that they don't rust, but I dipped the handle in water, the sword handle on the guard and the pommel. I would like for those to rust. I'm very proud of this. I do like the way this turned out by and large, and I really love this shot, nature and this item being reclaimed. Thank you for joining me for this build. This build was really fun. It was actually a fairly quick build. I ended up making 33 of these leaves. Some of them are duplicates. Most of them I would say are probably just one-of-a-kind one-offs. It is rare that I say this, but most of the time I am pleased with the final product to some degree. I am modestly pleased with this. I give this product a grade of a B. It did not turn out exactly how I wanted it to, but here's what I'm proud of. I'm really proud of the imagery, of the symbolism, of perhaps the deeper meaning of what this is. The notion that an implement made for battle, for protection, for war, even if it's used on a good side or not, the notion that that could then be reclaimed by nature, reclaimed by the world, something that has been constructed by man for a tool for whatever implement's purpose it might have been, that then nature comes back along and over time, nature always wins. Nature collects, nature reclaims. I dig that. I actually am proud of myself for that sort of notion that came to me about this. And it's really ironic in a telling way that this would have come from a neighbor of mine who said something kind of snide or kind of snarky to me, to then, instead of feeling petty or responding in a petty way or even holding on to it too much in my mind in a small way, to then lean into maybe the sentiment or the ethos that she was drawing from when she made that comment. I had no idea that a project or a piece of art would come out of that, but I'm glad that it did. The only reason I give this a B and not something more close to an A is that when I saw this in my mind's eye, I actually saw the knife with the blade that comes up and the leaves growing out of the blade. I didn't capture that here. What this looks like to me is a knife with a blade with leaves that just kind of fell and then stuck to the blade. It doesn't look like the leaves are growing out of the blade. If I were to do this over again, and I would definitely make it that way so that the leaves were coming from the blade and generating and growing from this blade, not just kind of laying on top of it like this. I hope you enjoyed this. If you like builds like this that are whimsical, that are eccentric, that are artistic, that are avant-garde, please check out my channel for other builds where I take on projects like that. In the past month or so, I've made multiple promises on different things that I'll be coming up next. I'm not even going to make a promise now because I've been wrong on several of those things and I haven't gotten to them yet. But join me next week for whatever project it is that I take on, and I have a feeling that I'm going to get back to just making weaponry again. Until then, God bless. Have a great week.